All right, welcome to the April meeting of the Southeast Beekeeping Club. Thanks everybody for coming. Looks like we're getting settled still. While we're all waiting for the last bits of folks to come in, I'll just quickly go over there we go. You've all seen this before, but for the new people here who might not have, I'll quickly go through this. I'm the president, Peter Lund, of the club. Mark Pomeroy, vice president. Treasurer, Janice Cobb. She's the one who probably signed you in as you got in here today. And also our secretary, Christine Mills. She's out there as well helping. At large, Christy Ledgerwood, who right there in the back. Brett Muratori. Did I get that anywhere close to right? Okay, and Cynthia Sullivan, whom I do not see right here. Okay. All right. Board members at large. We have our equipment manager, Doug Wilson. There we go. Doug's here. We're going to have a little chat about what he has available for everybody. Our librarian is Cynthia. Swarm managers, Tim, who I just saw Tim here a moment ago. I've lost him. Well, he's in the building. He's going to give a talk a little bit later, along with Cynthia Sullivan. And website is Christine Mills and Brian Clements. And Brett is managing our Parker Honey Festival presence this year. Apiary managers. There you go. I saw him. Brian Clements is here. There he is right there. And Perry Walsh. Our hospitality host is currently up in the air, although we do have a wonderful assistant who's providing some help with that. So appreciate the work there. Thank you. And as a reminder, dues for the year, $25. $7 of that gets you a membership with the CSBA, so the Colorado State Beekeepers Association, and you get a lot of member benefits, including access to our equipment library and the ability to participate in our weekend in apiary events, among other things. So we can always use volunteers, and if you want to volunteer for anything, just give me a shout. If you need to use any of the club's equipment, please contact Doug Wilson. He's 2 miles east of Parker, and send him a call. Do not text. He doesn't.
So the best thing is an email. The email is up there, and then I have a no phone, so it makes phone calls.
Best thing for Doug is email.
And we got a ton of stuff tomorrow, so if you need something, you can holler and we'll send it.
And there's an event on July 14th, Bees and Butterflies. Last year, a few of the members participated. They set up a tent, they sold honey, they participated in providing some kind of outreach to the people there. I think, Dina, were you part of that? And yeah, so if anybody wants to participate and do something similar, here's the information for getting into contact with them and sharing a little bit of knowledge about bees and pollinators. On June 13th and 14th, yeah?
June 14th, not July 14th.
Did I put the wrong date in?
No, you said it wrong.
June 14th. I do have the right date there. Okay, good. June 14th, Bees and Butterflies at Pine Lane Nursery. On the exact same day, at the exact same time, the CSBA Summer Bee College is in Rifle, Colorado. The CSB Bee College is, it's really fun. There's speakers in the morning, and then you go out into a commercial apiary in the afternoon, where you get to see how they operate their business and actually get into their hives and learn about firsthand experience with bees. Okay, and the registration is open. The link is there. $40 for member, $50 for non. And if you are not a CSBA member, that $50, that extra $10 buys you a 1-year membership with the CSBA. And I think we are still on for the garage sale, although we have not gotten a solid date yet. We're still working with the site to confirm that. But if you're interested in donating anything for the garage sale, please talk with Janice out in the front, and she will set you up. And April 26th, we've got an in-apiary event. We're going to install a package, and we're going to possibly do a split if we have the need for a split. And Mark's going to talk a little bit more about that later on in the day. But this is at the club apiary, which is at the Parker Water Facility. And you need to be, we're telling everybody to arrive at 9:45. And the reason for that is at exactly 10 a.m., we're going to open the gate and drive through, and then the gate closes behind. And there's no way to get in after the gate closes. So we all have to be there and go in as a group. So, Brian?
Yeah, it is an automated gate, and so we have to all kind of, we have to all go through at once. Just a quick reminder, bee suits are useful, so bring those, bring your protective wear, and I'm hoping that we will do, hopefully we'll do a split. Last time we were there, I think our one hive that's there, I think I saw, or Perry and I, wherever he is, we thought there's probably four or five frames of bees in there. So we're hoping by then they'll be ready to do a split. And I do have a package I'm picking up at 6 or 7 a.m. that Saturday morning, so we can do an install as well. And then everything else, maybe we'll vaporize. I've been vaping the hive there. So we'll see what else we can do while we're there. Thanks, everyone.
Sounds like it's going to be a very full event.
You must be a member with them.
Paid members, yes, of the Southeast Beekeepers. Okay. As a reminder, we do have an order in, a queen order through the CSBA Sustainability Group for Oliveira's honeybees. These are the ones that are Randy Oliver's line of queens, if that name means anything to you. And they're expected to be delivered sometime in May, around May 15th. If you want to place an order, talk to Janice out front, and she'll take that information. We're going to combine all of our individual orders into one large order and give that to the CSBA for them to process. And then once they arrive, we will disseminate as appropriate. And there's one thing that I forgot to do, which I should have done. I'm very bad at this. So we have a tradition here. If this is your first time attending in person, please raise your hand. Whoa, we have a lot. Let's go around the room. Please introduce yourselves.
Tell us who you are, what your interest in bees is, and kind of where you're at.
All right. My name is Joe. I'm here with my wife, Heather May, and we are about to embark on our first journey with bees. We're setting up our first hive this year. So I'm here to learn everything I can, including are the E's and B's silent, or do you pronounce them? But thanks for having me. I'll be here all night.
Hi there, my name is Laura. I'm coming in my third summer of beekeeping. I inherited a hive on my mom's property from my brother, who just turned out had an anaphylactic reaction, so I am the sole keeper of the beehives now. And so need a good support group now. My EpiPen.
Hi, I'm Joyanna. I'm coming up on my first year of beekeeping end of April, and I'm just very excited that both my hives survived the winter. And yeah, I'm learning a ton, and I'm excited to keep learning. What was that? Oh, sorry, Southeast Parker.
Hi, I'm Marion. I'm also Southeast Parker. I don't have any bees yet. Actually, truth be told, bees scare me a lot. But I do want to learn more and hopefully have a hive on our property someday.
I'm Linda English, and this is my husband Brink, and we had our first hive last year, but it did not make it through the winter. And we have great friends that we work with. We both work at Tagawa Gardens, so we've been working with a lot of people that are helping us there, but we need more help. So, and we're just south or just east of Ponderosa High School.
Linda Larson says hi.
Whoever knows Linda Larson, she says hello.
Yeah. Okay, who's next? Back here. There you go, Laura.
My name's Laura. I'm from Castle Rock. I have been doing bees a little bit over the last couple of years, sometimes more successful than not, so I'm hoping to be more successful.
Awesome.
You're in the right club.
Did I see someone over here? Hey, your turn.
Hi, I'm Eric, and this is Stella. We're from Aurora. This is our first year, so we're just getting started. I think our package of bees arrives on the 26th.
Awesome. Saturday.
Yeah. Cool.
There you go. Recorder.
Thank you. Dan, I started raising bees about 6 years ago when I lived in Wheat Ridge. We moved out here to help my kids with their grandkids, so I moved my hives out here. I've had 2 hives, been fairly successful until this last year. I lost one of them in December, so. But I'm gonna get a package and go at it, so.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Kendra. I don't own any bees, and I'm just like you. I don't know anything about bees, so I'm trying to find places that I can learn more. So this popped up on Facebook, and someone said, come on in, and so here I am. Yeah, thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Did we get? Oh, back in the corner there.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
I'm the runner.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jessica Palmer. I live just south of the town of Kiowa. Let's see, I do not have bees yet, but I do have bees on order from out in Kiowa. I believe my mother used to be an active member in this club, Diane Stack. And I'm really excited to get started with my own bees.
Do we have some more? We've been waiting for you.
Really? All right, I'm Richard. I'm here with my wife, Annette. I have not done bees before, but I have been studying bees for a couple of years now, and this is the year I'm going to do it. I was gifted a beehive, and so the spring is going to be it.
Awesome.
And, so we need the help too, the advice, so here we are.
Awesome.
Oh, one more.
We know you're there. There's one more.
I'm Jeff. I'm a recovering beekeeper.
Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
Thank you. And I guess it's not an AAA meeting, it's a BBB meeting. But I kept bees in Virginia before I moved out to Colorado. I live in Fort Collins, and I'm just visiting Karen Locatour tonight.
Well, thanks, everybody. I think that might be a record for the number of. Oh, do we have one more? We have one more.
I was hoping someone took that. We moved here from Las Vegas this past summer. Moved here? Mercedes. My name's Mercedes. We moved here from Las Vegas this past summer, and we now have space to have bees. So I heard you're more successful if you find a group of people that can keep them alive. So we're hoping that applies to bees and the kids.
So far, so good.
I don't know.
Awesome. Well, thanks, everybody. Let's all give a round of applause for all of our new guests and members. So this is April. In our bee calendar, the most important, well, I don't know. They're all most important. I don't know.
This is one of the busiest.
This is one of the busiest, yes, one of the busiest months. So we're coming up on swarm season. We're going to have a little talk about swarms a little later in the meeting. What do you need to do this time around? Well, time to rotate the deeps, put out the swarm traps if you're anticipating collecting any swarms that might come into your backyard or area or wherever you are. Watch for overcrowding in your hives, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little later as well. And we always talk about varroa treatments because that seems to be the number one reason in this area for why colonies tend to fail. So things to keep in mind. And as we get into the rest of this, we'll get into a bit of detail on some of these items that we're just glossing over right now. So we're going to switch things up a little bit. We originally planned to do this later in the meeting, but we're gonna do talking about the Snellgrove method. This is more of an advanced topic, but where's Pete? There's Pete. Pete, come on up. So Pete's going to give us a talk about the Snellgrove method, and he's going to tell us what it is, what it's for, how to do it, and what all the benefits are. And Pete, take it away.
I need hands.
You need hands. We don't have this?
No.
Just stick it in your pocket.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Well, in your shirt pocket.
Oh,
There you go.
okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name's Pete Morris, and I as well is a beekeeper. And tonight I'm going to talk about really vertical splits. Vertical splits, the advantage of a vertical split. There's several ways to do a vertical split. Snellgrove boards is one. A double screen, well, let me just show you as I'm talking. Snellgrove board is one way to do a vertical split. Double screen split board is another. And a Demaree is another, or Demaree, however you say it. Anyways, I'm going to try to get through this as fast as I can. It's intermediate to advanced. The first time that the new beekeepers hear this, don't feel bad if your eyes get glazed over and just go, because it's a hard concept to grasp. But I'll give you resources where you could find out where to go to find them.
If you're not a beekeeper, you don't have to worry about this until next year.
I don't know, is that going to stay up there? Maybe we could put something in front of it. Here's a few resources. Now, this queen calendar wheel, that does not work no more. But there's a couple resources to find out about the Snellgrove board. The best resource that I have for Snellgrove board is a PDF by a bloke. He's Welsh, and he belongs to the Welsh Beekeepers Association. His name is Wally Shaw. He put out a good PDF. It's called The Many Uses of the Snellgrove board. What he did was Leonard Snellgrove in 1930s developed this Snellgrove board, and Wally Shaw read his book, and it says you can't get any harder reading that book. So he wrote this PDF to try to simplify it.
How do you spell his name? Last name?
Shaw. Shaw, and it's up here. Wally Shaw. If you go to wbka.com and then type a search in there, Snellgrove boards PDF from Wally Shaw, and it'll pop up. And that's what you'll get. Read it 10 times because 2 times ain't enough. It's kind of technical, but I want to tip you off that after you do it a couple of times, it's really not that complicated. We tend to make it more complicated days. But it's a vertical split. You come in the springtime. There's 2 methods. You come in the springtime. Your bees are building up. I run double deeps. And so you start going in double deeps, and when you have at least 6 to 8 frames of brood. Don't try to do this with less because it'll probably fail. One of my earlier OTS splits has failed because I tried to split with too little frames of brood. So you go in and there's 2 methods. There's pre-swarm and there's post-swarm. Method 1 is pre-swarm. Method 2 is post-swarm. And he refers to a method 2 modified, which is more practical if they're already in the swarm mode. So anyways, you want to make a split. The beauty of a vertical split is you get the warmth from the bottom box to the top boxes. In Colorado, one day it'd be 70 degrees, you go out there and you make your splits, and then that night it chills off and snowing the next day. And that split will chill on you. You have chill brooding. And that's why it's nice to have vertical splits, because all that heat will go up through these double screen. And the purpose of the double screen, you got a screen on one side, screen on the other side. It's to keep the bees from touching each other, to pass around that queen mandala pheromone. And so they think they're queenless on top. So you go in your hive, and you say, I better split these, or they're going to split themselves. So you take, if you do have any honey supers on, you tear it down and you go through your boxes. Method 1 is pre-swarm, and you start looking through your boxes. You find your queen and a couple frames of brood, no more. Downstairs, and the rest, a lot of open comb and a couple frames of resources, and they'll get all the flyers. But you want to keep, the whole purpose is you're separating the workforce. To swarm, you got to have 3 things: the queen, the flyers, and the nurse bees, or the workers. If you break up that workforce, then they will not swarm. If you take away the queen, they won't swarm unless they've already got capped queen cells. If you take away the workers, then they won't swarm. If you put an imbalance in the bees, they won't swarm. The whole purpose is to keep this box from swarming, because it's busting with bees. If you don't do something, it'll fly. So you put your queen downstairs, empty comb where she has place to lay, and when you steal all her brood, she puts it in second gear and starts laying up a storm again. And then you come in and you put a queen excluder on her. Now there's 2 ways to do this. A lot of times I'll go back to a single brood box management at this point, but you still can use 2 deeps if you have another deep with some comb. You could leave it 2 deeps on the bottom. But you put a queen excluder so the queen can't get up into your honey supers. You want to put a honey super on that so they don't get crowded and they start bringing in resources, and they got this feeling of space. So you put a honey super on, and then you put a queen or the snow grow board. And then you put your top box on top of the snow grow board, and what you effectively done is you separated the queen from the workers where they can't pass that pheromone, and all of a sudden they feel as though they're queenless. So they'll want to start drawing down queen cells. You want as many worker bees up here as you can, as much brood as you can, because you need a lot of nurse bees to make a lot of royal jelly to make good queen cells. That's if you want to raise your own queen to open mate, or if you want to do a mated queen, which I usually don't do. I usually make my own queens. So anyways, what you have here is you have all your workforce on top, all your capped brood, most of your open brood, your double screen split board, honey super queen excluder, and then you have your bottom box has your queen, very little brood, just 2 frames, and all the flyers will come in here and they'll start loading up your honey supers. I usually put 2 honey supers in. I just brought 1 tonight, but I usually put 2 honey supers unless we're in a heavy flow, and then I'll stack up 3. That's what I'm going to say. And then when you're done with your manipulation, before you walk away, you open up the door on one side or the other. Doesn't matter which side. You open the top door. And so what happens here is all your flyers that had orientated to this bottom box, they come out of this top door and they come around, this ain't my entrance, they go right back home. Okay? Now, you leave that open for 5 days. And in them 5 days, a lot of that cap brood is emerging, and a lot of the nurse bees that was up there when to start with, they get promoted to be flyers. They come out the side and they start orientating. The beauty of these doors and a snell grow board over a double screen split board is you could take these promoted workforce from the upstairs that you don't really need to bring them out and put them downstairs. At 5 days, you open this door here and you shut this door here. You open the bottom door because this bottom door goes to the downstairs colony. So the bees will come out that were orientated to this top door, and they'll think, okay, I'm going to go home. They go in the bottom door and they go down. At the same time, you come around over here and you open the top left door. That's at day 5. And all you're doing is you're moving that workforce from the top to the bottom as they get promoted, because you don't want that congestion, because one frame of cap brood will give you 3 frames of bees when they start emerging. So you want to get these excess bees out of top. And by then, you've got capped queen cells. After 10 days, you go in here, 7 to 10 days, you go in here and see what you got if you want to raise a queen, or if you want to split them up and make nukes. Usually I'll only leave a couple queen cells up here if I want to make a queen up here, and I'll use the other ones with nukes and stuff. But I've been trying to graft, and I just don't have the vision for it. This is how I make queens. I make my own queens by using split boards and stuff. I'm going to try grafting again this year, but it's been 9 years and I haven't been too good at it. I'm going to try it again this year. So anyways, that's at day 5, you manipulate that door. And then at day 10, after all these guys, I forgot to tell you, after all these guys orientated after a day or so, you could shut this side door. So now they're coming out the top left, and they're orientating to that. And then what orientates to this is the promoted flyers from the other capped brood that came out. And then day 10, you open up this, shut that, and open the top back. Whoops, back height. Confused yet? Yeah. Aha. This is why you got to get the PDF and read it 10 times, because 2 ain't enough. It is until you physically do it. Once you physically do this a couple times, you think, man, that ain't so hard. That ain't so hard. You just got you can't forget, why are you doing this? What are you trying to accomplish? You're trying to get your workforce down to your main colony to make a honey crop. Because if you do a walk-away split where you take the top box off and set it on a bottom board and you go like that, you're not going to get as big of a honey crop. If you left it as a single stack, and that basically now all you got is a small nuke up here in the end that's mating a queen. Then after that, 5 days are up, you cycle the doors again, and you shut this. By that time, this back door is open, all the doors are shut, but this back top. You don't want to do no more manipulations, because your day 10, or day 15, you go into day 16, your queen's going to emerge, start hardening up her wings, and she's the one who want to go out, and she wants to mate. If you start manipulating doors after that, she's going to come out, and then you have your doors manipulated, she'll end up downstairs. But where I had this fail a few times, I left the bottom door open on the sides. After that day 15, a queen came out and went downstairs and killed the old queen, and top hive went queenless. Yeah. But that's a snell grow board. Just remember, what you're trying to accomplish with a snell grow board huge colony on the bottom to give you a honey crop. I mean, I've stacked this up for honey supers, and then I've even put honey supers on the top after that queen gets mated. They'll start bringing in resources. That's a snow globe board. Now, we're talking vertical splits, and the key of a vertical split is to keep your brood from chilling. So now you come, if you want to do just a double screen split board, and Bob Benny has an excellent video on double screen split boards. He's at this Blue Ridge Honey Company. I love YouTube. YouTube's got some really good information. Bob Benny's got a YouTube video channel. He puts out some excellent videos, especially on these double screen split boards, queen rearing and everything else. But, pardon? Georgia, yeah. Well, you got to remember when you're watching YouTube, beekeeping is beekeeping and beekeeping, except location is location is location. He's in Georgia, we're in Colorado. He's a month or so ahead of us. So that matters. What he'll do, if he comes out there and he wants to just make queens, of course he raises queens, he'll come out there and he'll tear down his colony and find the queen, put her in the bottom box, put all the brood that he wants for the split. You know, like he'll bring like 4 frames. He'll leave 4 frames in the bottom, and the rest of the brood he'll bring up on top. And the next day, all them nurse bees will come up to that queen exclude and rehabit. Even after a couple hours, they'll rehabitat that brood. And then he comes in the next day. He just pulls off this box here, and he puts in a double screen split board. He don't use snow globe boards. Commercial guys don't like snow globe boards because it's too labor intense. I mean, if you got 300 colonies, you ain't got time to go out there and play with these doors. You ain't got time for that. But for a backyard beekeeper, it's an excellent way to, with just a few colonies, to make a queen and make a honey crop. Requeen. I try to requeen every year. So he'll come in there. He's got a queen on the bottom, double screen split board. He'll put that just one opening on the top, and then all his brood up here, and then he'll put his double bubble and his magnetoid cover, I think is what he runs. But now, what you have here, and then he'll put in a mated queen. That's how he does it. But if you want to make a split and want to raise your own queen, open mated, you do the same thing, except you have all this brood up here, and because the double screen, they can't touch. They think they're queenless on top, and they'll pull down queen cells. You come in 7 to 10 days, and this is kind of important. It's all about your queen rearing, because queen will cap in 8, and they'll emerge in 16. You got to know your bee math. If you're a new beekeeper, one thing that you really need to know is bee math. Your bee biology on your worker, your drones, and your queens. Especially queens if you're going to raise queens. So after day 8, they're capped. You go in there, and usually I'll come in 7 to 10 days later, and I'll see how many queen cells I got. And sometimes I'll notch them, this OTS method. I used to do this a lot. A little different than a double screen split, but Mel Dissincombe come out with this OTS on the spot queen rearing. It's kind of handy. He'll notch 2-day-old larvae up on top, and that's where they'll draw down them queen cells, so they draw down nice big queen cells, so they don't have to come out vertically and then down. But anyways, you come up here, check the queen cells. If you got too many, you can make a couple nukes, or you can eradicate them down to 2, and then you leave this thing alone for 28 days. 28 days to 30 days, and she'll be out and mated. She'll come in, you check her eggs and larvae and brood, and then you could either take this off, or you could start stacking honey supers. Now, mind you, on here, I would have had honey supers in here too. I'd put a honey super in here, just like I did that previous demonstration, because you don't want to disturb it as much as you can. And that's a double screen splitter. Or you can move this thing off onto its own bottom board, and then just make 2 hives. After you you got your queen mated. Or you can run a double queen hive. But that's a double queen split board. Now you got the other option, which uses, you don't need any specialized equipment. And it's a vertical split as well. These are all vertical splits. It's all the same thing, except different techniques. This is developed by some French dude named Demaree. You come into your hive, and you're in swarm season, and if you see swarm cells, you go in there, you start tearing it down, and you got swarm cells. So you find your queen, you put your queen down in the bottom, and you take all the capped brood, and you put it in the top for the top box. The queen and a couple of maybe one frame of open brood to latch them to that box, and then the rest a lot of open comb, because that queen will take off again and start laying real fast. All the flowers come in here. This will be your big colony. So you come in here. This is your big colony. Single brood box management. Unless you got a lot of boxes and comb, you could do a double D, but you don't really need to. You'd get more honey if you did single box management. And then you put a queen excluder, or two. I usually at least two. So you got two queen excluders. And you got another queen excluder on top of your honey supers. And then you take your other deep box full of all your all your capped brood, all your open brood, all your workers, because your flyers are down here and your queen is down here and your workers are up here. So what did that do? It separated your workforce. If you separate your workforce, the chance of it swarming, hopefully, will not happen. So now you got a separated workforce. You go in here 7 to 10 days later. This is really important. 7 to 10 days later. And then a lot of people, when they move these up, they eradicate any swarm cells. If they found swarm cells, or you could do this, be preemptive by just putting all the capped brood up here. If there's no swarm cells, queen down below, all the brood up here. If there is swarm cells, queen down below, swarm cells and capped brood and everything's upstairs. You eradicate the queen cells. Come in 10 days later. And if there's any more queen cells, you knock them down, and you go all the way down this bottom box, and you go through this real quick and look for queen cells. Usually that first week is the only time I do that for the deep. And I didn't do it one time. They swarmed out the bottom because they built a swarm cell. They had one started, and I missed it. Anyways, after you make that check, then you stack it all back up. Your queen excluder, that keeps this queen from getting into your honey super. And then you got this box that just has brood. And if you want to raise a queen and have a 2-queen colony, you could let that queen hatch out. And when I do a Demaree, I forgot to mention this. When I do a Demaree, I use a thing called an emery shim. It was developed by this guy back east called Emery, and just a little 3/4-inch shim just gives an opening. All your drones could come out. Because if you got any drone brood up here, they're trapped in them queen excluders. And that could get ugly when you got a queen excluder full of dead drones. And then if you're mating a queen, of course, this will be in the back because you don't want both openings. So actually, I got it wrong. This will be in the back. And if you want to raise a queen, you could let one queen cell right up here, and then you'd put on another queen cell. A queen excluder, and then another honey super or two. And this queen will mate and start laying up. And this thing takes off, starts laying up. And this queen can't go below that queen excluder. And this queen, because the purpose of this second queen excluder, a lot of people don't do this second queen excluder on a Demaree. The purpose of the second queen excluder, if you get a mated queen up here, you don't want a mated queen in your honey super. Because she'll make this a brood box. And she'll trash it. Yeah, it's just insurance. I mean, all the workers, and what happens is you got 2 queens laying up a storm. These workers are going up and down, in and out, putting honey in all the honey supers on top, in the middle, and all the workers down here. They work together, even though there's 2 queens putting out a lot of brood. You get twice as much honey, plus you could get a new mated queen. I had a Demaree, very successful, well, I guess, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I did a Demaree, and I had a bottom box of queen excluder, 4 honey supers full. Queen excluder, emery shim, top box, 3 honey, or another queen excluder, 3 honey supers. It was this tall. I was standing next to it. I got a picture of it if I could find it. It was this tall. I had used painted platforms to work it, which is kind of dangerous at my age. Demarees work. Demarees work. You don't have to have a whole lot of fancy equipment. You don't even have to have this emery shim if you're not worried about, mating a queen or the drones. But another thing you put here is like a queen excluder with the notch down, or not a queen, inner cover with the notch down for the drones to get out on top of it. But that's a Demaree. All 3 do the exact same thing. It's a vertical split. They're sharing the heat from the bottom box to the top box. Because when you're raising queens and you got young brood and you got a cold snap, you got a problem. Where with this, you don't have that problem. Go ahead.
Pete, I didn't know about the second queen excluder, so I appreciate that. If I don't want to do a second hive on the top, I'm gonna take out all my queen cells, and ultimately all the brood's gonna be gone. At that point, it should be 30 days, something like that. Can I take that top teat and put it down on the bottom, box number 2, and go back to a double deep?
Excellent question. Tony West mentions this in that video I was telling you about. Tony West does a YouTube video on Demarees. If you're interested in Demarees, go to YouTube and type in Tony West bees. He's in Ohio, and he put out a couple of them, a couple years apart. Excellent videos on Demarees. But he does a thing called a rolling Demaree. Every 10 days, and mind you, these stacks get high. Every 10 days, he goes all the way down to the bottom and gets that cap brood from the bottom, brings it up to the top box, and the empty comb where the bees emerged, he'll rotate to the bottom so the queen has a place to lay. So she has plenty of comb to lay in down at the bottom, and the top has a constant flow of bees emerging. And if you keep doing that, this top box won't turn into a honey super. Because if this turns into a honey super, it's heavy. It is. Especially when it's way up here, it's heavy. It could weigh 80, 90 pounds.
I spun some of those deep frames for Kenny 2 years ago. They're heavy. They take forever to spin out.
Yeah, most people, their extractors kind of geared for mediums. I mean, you could do, like a lot on the smaller extractors, you could do the Tangent. I don't like extracting deeps. I like to leave the deeps with honey in it for the bees. It's a good thing. If you got too much of it, then you just keep it and put it aside in a Tupperware bin, and you can feed it back to them for winter storage. Go ahead.
Are you then forever stuck with the tall?
No.
I mean, at what point can you then?
After swarm season.
Okay.
Like, let's say when between April 15th and June 15th is our swarm season. Well, along about the end of May and June, we start getting, hopefully, sometimes we don't, we get a honey flow. Once these bees start bringing in copious amounts of honey in a honey flow, they forget all about swarming. At that time, you could tear it down and you could put this box above this box. And if it does have a lot of honey in it, oh well, leave it for the bees. What they'll do is they'll move it up.
But if you have a second colony that's established up there.
Oh, if you raise 2 colonies, just take this top box off, put it on another bottom board. I would give her another box of comb or foundation. If you're in a flow, they'll draw it right out.
Yeah.
Might ding your honey.
But they'll know where to go if you take it off.
Well, there's a process.
Yes, I'm sure there is.
bees orientate to their box.
Yes.
And if you move their box, they say 3 inches, 3 miles. You know, you can move it 3-6 inches a day and they'll orientate. What I usually do, because like it's either in my home apiary just across the street here in Franktown, or it's there in Foxfield, out there by where Tom lives. I'll take this top box off when the queen's mated, and I'll put it on a bottom board on a wagon behind that hive. And they'll get confused at first, but then they'll find their colony, they'll go down here. And then every day, I move it down the line until I have an empty spot, and then I'll spin it around, and then new colony.
Great.
Or if you got another out apiary that's 3 miles away, 2-3 miles away. There's so many different. Everybody says something different on that.
Interesting.
You just put some screen them in, ratchet strap it together, put it in your truck, and haul it to your out apiary, and then they'll reorientate.
Okay.
Now Joe Caperta come up with something. This is something that always fascinated me. He says that you could take this piece of cardboard. I tried it once. It seemed to work. And you can make like a, what do you call that? A piece of cardboard to block the front, except it bulges out in the middle, like an onk. And you pin it on both sides. Bees, they can't see the horizon, so they're looking out. All they see is cardboard. They have to come up, and then they reorientate. He says that you can move them across in the same yard, and I've tried it. It seemed to work, but yeah. And they talk about stuffing trees and branches and all kinds of stuff in there, grass, and there's all kinds of different ways. Yes.
So you might have said this, and I might have missed it, but on the Snellgrove method, you have the original queen on the bottom, and then you're making a new queen on the top. What do you do with the original queen?
Oh, well, it depends. What I usually do is when that queen on top gets mated and at the end of the honey flow, I'll go down to the bottom box, pinch off that old queen, because I try to requeen every year. I'll pinch off that old queen and reunite them, because with a double screen split board, they may not touch and pass a queen pheromone, but they smell the same. They're all sisters. I pull that double screen split board out. They're all sisters. They all get along. It's just wonderful. But if you're a little nervous, you can put in a piece of newspaper and do a newspaper combine. I've never had one fail. Never. But you did bring up a good question. There's 2 methods to the Snellgrove. And if you go into this PDF of Wally Shaw, I was just talking about method 1. Method 2 is if you have queen cells already charged in that bottom box. There's a different method. What he says to do, this is what Ellie Snellgrove wrote in his book. You take the queen, all the brood to the top box, day 1. Day 10, and then downstairs you only leave 2 frames of brood downstairs, just 2 frames of brood. And then day 10, you go up that top box, and all the queen cells will be up top box. You could eradicate them down, or they'll probably tear them down because they've got an imbalanced workforce. They don't have no foragers. They'll tear them down. But I used to like to eradicate them just in case. So day 10, you go in there, you find that frame with the queen on it. And I have this little inspection box. It's just a little nuke box. And I stick the queen in with that frame. And then I'll go down that bottom box. Them 2 frames that's on the bottom usually have a queen cell on it by after 10 days. And so I'll move them 2 frames up to the top box and 2 frames up the top box, back down with the queen, back down after 10 days. What that does is it suppresses the queen urge because you get that urge out of their system. And then because you have all the workers up here and the division in labor, it tears up their division in labor. You suppress the queen urge. And it's supposed to just take off just wonderful, but I still had that mated queen swarm out.
And then my other question with the Snellgrove, do eventually, I think you said you can leave them together, but
I leave them together till after the honey flow. It's problematic because it does get tall. It depends on how strong your honey flow is. Like I said with that Demaree, just think of all these 3 things as all the same thing. Vertical splits, just different methods. They can get tall, And I like to leave them until, like I get a mated queen and she's laying and everything. But by then you're in the middle of flow, and I don't want to lose the flow by disrupting the hive. So I just stack on more boxes on the top and on the bottom hive, because you'll have a mated queen on top, mated queen on the bottom. And then when you do your extraction, you pull your honey supers off, and then you could decide whether you want that mated queen to replace that old queen on the bottom, and you could pinch her off, or you could put her into a nuke box and call her a zombie hive and use her for resources and combine them.
And my other question is, you had me when you opened the door on the left side. Okay, and then the newbies came out and were acclimated to their new entrance.
That's day one.
Day one, and then you closed it, and then they would go downstairs for like
day 5.
Day 5, they go downstairs.
Day 5, you close this, open this, because all the bees, and then you open this.
And okay, that's where you lost me.
Okay, let me tell you real quick. I can see where this is confusing. All the bees that was orientated here, they can't get out except here, right? That's the only exit now. So they exit out of here. This don't look right. They'll come when they come back. They want to come back over here to their original door that they orientated to. But all they got is they got an opening. All right, let's just go in there. But what it does, it takes them to that bottom hive.
Downstairs. And
Takes
then
them downstairs,
on
and
day-
after about a day or so, after 2 days, when they get that orientation urge out, you can shut this, and then day 10, this is 5, that'd be 10. You open that, and
why do you
Yeah.
put them to the other side?
put what to the other side?
Why do you reorient them to the other?
Because of the doors, every 5 days, you want to use a different orientation.
Okay.
And you only got 4 sides. Normally, some snow globe boards have them on the front, but if you have them on the front, then you're having confusion with your front interest. So you usually put this back one to the back.
And then that's the permanent side.
Yeah, I usually like to put it to the back. It really doesn't matter. If you want them to the permanent side for the queen, like if you want to raise a queen in the end, if you want to leave that door open, just make sure whatever door you leave open after, I think, day or 10 or 15, I'd have to read the PDF. Make sure that there's no doors open but that one, so that virgin queen don't go out to mate and come back downstairs into your honey supers.
The purpose is to offload the number of bees that are upstairs.
To downstairs.
Because you've got 8 frames of brood. Each frame of brood will turn into 3 frames of bees, right?
Yeah, this top box will get packed.
So
Yeah.
in order to offload all those extra bees, you get them to fly out, trick them into going downstairs, and then pretty soon they're gonna be using the front door, that's
Yeah.
much bigger than going in that.
Yeah, once they go downstairs, they orientate to the front.
That side door to be locked. Out there, or you're no longer the nursery.
Then here again, the beauty of this, because of all the bees that you have upstairs to suppress the swarming urge, if you use a double screen split board, what you make is what you get. And you could reduce your hive in half and you won't get as much honey crop. This snow grove, if you want making a queen and honey crop, double screen split board, you're kind of set on how many bees you put upstairs, so be cautious of that. If you just want to make a nuke and you want to use a double screen split board, don't bring so much bees upstairs. Bring maybe 3 or 4 frames of brood and some resources, and maybe get a mated queen, or that 3 or 4 probably not enough to raise a good queen. So you need copious amounts of raw jelly to make good queens. And Anne, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, there's a lot of different ways to make your own queens.
Yep.
But they usually involve having to take out frames, find little things, go in, and you're always like pulling frames out. This is great because if you can't, and it has to be done on a schedule. It's day 7. You have to go do this. What if it's raining? What if you're in a blizzard? The great thing about this, I've gone out in the rain with a pencil and just poke the door open, poke this door closed, and go back inside. And that's all you have to do. You're not opening up the hive at all, and you're not disturbing everything that's going on in there.
You've done this before, Ann. I mean, when you first started, how intimidating was that?
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. Okay, how intimidating is it now after you've done it a few
Not at all.
Exactly.
Not at all.
So get your PDF, read your PDF 10 times.
I would
'cause two ain't
suggest,
enough.
I'm a visual learner, not a verbal learner. Right. And I drew pictures. Yeah. Read the PDF. As you do it, draw yourself a picture, and that's how I do it, as I refer back to my picture.
And there's a lot of good YouTube videos that talk about snow growth. Now, if you just want to raise your queen, like you want to replace your queen every year, OTS, on the spot queen rearing. You go in, you find your queen and a couple frames of brood, you put them in a nuke box and a frame of resources. You notch 3-day-old larvae on the open brood that's in the top box. You come back in 10 days later, you check for queen cells, make sure if you got too many, eradicate them down to 2, or you make some nukes out of it, spread them around. And then in 28 days, you should have a new queen. If you don't get a new queen mated in 28 to 30 days, you have your old queen in that nuke box, your newspaper back on. It's a fail-safe thing if you keep that old queen. But this worked great for me for years and years and years. OTS, what Tom Garthright uses OTS year after year. The trouble with OTS, and this is what Tom reiterated to me tonight, on the spot queen rearing. Mel Dissincone started it. He wrote a book on it. You could go to this mdsplitter.com and everything's free on his website. You don't need the book. And then also John Schwartz has a .com website. It's theb.farm.com. He'll explain it in depth. He's even got videos on it. This is an easy way to raise your own queens. You want to multiply your colonies, get a new queen, and plus you got a nuke starter to start another colony. Queen rearing is easy.
Okay, I believe our website has a page on this. Also, last year when Ann was on a plane, I think, she helped me proofread a Snellgrove paper I wrote. And so what I thought we could do is circulate that. I see Christine over there, our secretary, who's awesome. We'll make sure that all the references, the PDF is on there, that has the link also to the Wally Shaw document, and that we'll make sure it's on the website, and then we'll send it out as kind of like that along with this video link so that everybody can look at it.
Let me pass this around so they could just get an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing, if you do the Snellgrove, take a
complicated
pencil.
it could be.
If you do Snellgrove, take a pencil and label your doors A, B, and C, and have notes.
Better B has good explanation for snow growth. Better than that, it's more clear. That's it. But there's resources on both sides of this. If anybody during the break wants to take a picture of these, here's Wally Shaw's information. Here's another website that does snow grows at Barnsley Bees. Me? Technology? You're asking the wrong Pete. I'm techno inept.
Thanks, Pete. That's a lot of really good information. Okay, we're going to take a break. Let's take about 10 minutes. Help yourself to some food in the lobby there, and we'll be back here in about 10 minutes. So 7:38.
Leave the mic in here. You can carry it if you want.
We'll be getting in them, but.
Okay, all right, yeah, because that's right now, I just want to see what it looks like. That's where I'm not even close to that.
So it's basically going to look kind of like that.
And is this always the bottom one, or is this one?
Yeah, so in a traditional line straw 5, we talk about doing double deeps, right? So deep is this size box. Mediums or supers is that shallow box that has the handles on the edge. So a lot of times we're just doing honey.
Okay.
And what you can do is when you put a queen excluder, which is the flat single piece metal, right? The queen can't pass through that. And when the queen can't pass through that, the only thing they'll put above it is honey. And the rules of the hive change at that point, and the spacing and stuff like that. It's a little bit more advanced after the first year. We typically use the supers partly because honey is heavy. So that will be 40 to 50 pounds when it's full of honey. This can be 100 pounds.
So then,
They'll be the blue bugs, the black boxes.
So there's fruit and there's honey.
Yeah. Okay. So what they'll do This is actually this is a medium grain. So the size difference is that's a deep, that's a medium. So it's another 3 inches long. And in this case, because this is a honey super, they'll only fill this with honey. Any honey that is down in the brood space is theirs. They get to keep it. Okay. And what you want is by the time we get to fall, we want as much honey and sugar down here as we can. So we don't want to harvest it because that's what they need to get people out until the next spring. Okay? And we'll talk about some of that soon. Yeah.
What I do is I take my high tool and I scrape off all the wax. Then at the end of the year, I take that the beads are scrape it down. So like Mark has a sample. If you scrape it with your knife, they'll eventually wax it. But they don't like rubbing wax. They don't mind rubbing wax on wax. They hate rubbing wax on it. So they'll kind of use those to scrape their nose. They won't go through anyway. So that's why you need to take the wax. Or you could buy it on Amazon for or from you know, my hives, I'm in the place now where I'm actually getting sick. I am convinced that I have to fully replace if I don't do that, no, it's because it gets, I have a feeling, I'm right in the middle of hive. That means a lot of you're spraying, fertilizing, spraying. Demaree, there you go. Oh my God. Tony West. Watch Tony West on the radio. All the workers are pretty grand. If you get you're not going to have the same problem. Dark faster. And for that reason, this year, and my conclusion is the life yes, you're a clock. You have a built-in clock. In the old days, they had the hook. The shepherd's crook. Yep.
I hope everybody enjoyed the food. Thanks for everybody who contributed and brought it in. All right, we're going to get into beginner beekeeping basics. I guess that's the 3 B's of bees. The 3 B's of bees. Vance.
We're going to push this to the next month and start with.
We're going to push yours to next month?
If you want.
You got 10 minutes?
He's gonna take more than 10 minutes.
It's up to you.
Whatever you want to do.
Now or
Well, I know that a lot of people came.
going into what if you need to fill 5 or 10 minutes, then I can.
Let's start with beginners and go into this. Let's do that.
Okay. All right. So there we go. He's gonna read.
Okay, so Vance is going to talk for a little bit about beginning beekeeper basics. So we're at the beginning of this and go from there. And you'll need the mic.
I will need a mic. A mic?
You can put it in your pocket.
Okay. This is just to prove that some beekeepers can read.
But only if they have those things hanging around, already done in the face.
It hides my face, so I don't scare the small children. I've got a couple of things here. And this is directed to everybody, but primarily the new beekeepers. And the beauty of beekeeping is you just saw a tremendous presentation on what seems like a very technical operation. And once you've mastered it, it can be simple, but it is an in-depth machination to preserve bees and keep them from swarming and preserve your apiary. On the other hand, and the beauty of beekeeping is there are so many avenues you can go down and enjoy. And despite the fact that the bee is one of the most researched animals, there is still so much that we don't know about bees. And I came across this in a book called Telling the Bees. It's a novel. It's an interesting story. But this paragraph struck me, and I wanted to share it with you. One of the more puzzling aspects of the worker bee's behavior is her seeming ability to adapt to a succession of diverse responsibilities over the course of her lifetime, without obvious training or prior knowledge of the tasks.
Even more intriguing is the fact that she undertakes these progressively more complex tasks, as British apiarist Herbert Mace noted, having descended from parents who have never performed the tasks expected of her, as neither have the requisite organs or intelligence expected of their daughter. How then, without proper guidance or example, does the worker learn to fulfill her role when the father is a mere depositor of sperm and the queen mother nothing more than an indifferent layer of the fertilized egg? Now, if you take a moment to think about that, dare I say, the miracle of what these animals do, I hope when you visit your bees and you look at them, you say, how the heck do they do this? And when we have more time, I'll read another thing that I wrote. And just to give you the one-liner, if you don't take anything else away, when you get your bees and you're kind of, oh my God, now what I do? Step back, take a breath, and as I mentioned in this thing that I wrote, a guy named Jerry Webb, who was a professional beekeeper, and for some reason he liked me, and so he taught me a lot of beekeeping. But his famous line was, bees'll do what bees'll do. You can read all these books, you can read all the magazines, you can talk to 3 beekeepers here and get 6 different opinions. At the end of the day, bees'll do what bees'll do. So if you will remember that, you will hopefully keep your sanity. However, since you got to be insane to be a beekeeper, so who knows? So thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Vance. And next, Mark's going to go into packages.
And I want to build briefly on what Vance was just talking about with the 3 beekeepers and 6 opinions. Sometimes it's 7. My best advice, to a new beekeeper is listen to what all the different perspectives are, but take what is resonating with you. They are your bees. You get to manage your bees the way you want to manage your bees. So find the things that resonate with you, ask questions, ask, why are you doing it that way? What are the downsides of doing it that way? Trying to get more information to make an informed decision about how you want to manage your bees. But ultimately, it is your choice. So that's my piece of advice. That also applies to everything that I'm going to tell you. So take everything I say with a grain of salt as well. Okay? So what this is going to be is, the assumption is this is primarily for brand new beekeepers, that you have brand new equipment, you don't have any drawn comb, it is brand new boxes, brand new foundation on your frames, and you're getting a package of bees probably in the last week of April, right? And so having said that, this is kind of what a package will look like. This is one of the types. There's another type called a bee bus. That's a plastic one that's slightly different. We're going to operate the same way on both of these things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set this aside. Okay. Because we're going to talk about getting your hive ready to accept that package. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a good location for your hive. You want to have compacted, level ground. And ultimately what we want to do is we want to make sure that our hive is level side to side. That's going to be important. The reason that's important is because the bees are in the dark and they're building wax based on gravity. So if your hive is tipped, they're going to be drawing wax at all sorts of weird ways, and that's going to cause you problems later. So you want to make sure that side to side it is level, but you want to tip it slightly forward. You want it to be so that if you get rain and snow on the front or on top, it will roll off the front, off of the entranceway and out. So that's the first thing that we're going to do, is we're going to do that. One of the things that I do, because I don't have that many hives and because I like woodworking and stuff, I modified my bottom board and I added on leveling feet. And so this allows me to just go in and set a level and adjust my feet, and that allows me to level everything. This also has the advantage of, one year I had problems with ants. And ants are not a big problem. The bees can manage the ants until you get to the honey harvest, when you need all the bees out of your honey supers, and they're no longer there to keep the ants out, and ants love it. So one of the things I can do with these leveling feet is I have just some heavy grease on the legs of the feet. The ants can't get in there, and so it solved my ant problem. So that's just an aside. That's something I do, and I just thought I'd toss that out there. Okay, so as we're getting ready, what new beekeeper knows what this funny stick is? It's an entrance reducer, okay? And what this is there's two different notches in there. There's a small notch and there's a wider notch. And if you orient it in different locations, you can completely block things off, which we don't want to do. We can have a bigger opening and we can have a smaller opening. Now, when we start talking about packages, and I'll go into the bee biology and the timing, which is kind of what Pete was talking about. We have to have a knowledge of what is happening with our bees over time. And one of the things is, from the day that we install this, our population is decreasing in the hive, because it will take 21 days for an egg to turn into a new worker bee, right? So during that entire time, the number of bees is going down. That also means the number of bees who can guard this resource that's being built goes down. So what we want to do is we're going to start with the smallest opening on our entrance reducer. And so we're going to place that, and we're going to tuck it in underneath the bottom board in the bottom deep. And so now this is the small opening. That's the only entrance that they have to guard from other bees, wasps, other pests, and things like that. So we're going to leave that in place for quite a while, actually, when we're starting with a package. The other big thing is, with a package, this whole first year is about building wax. It is about making the environment so that they can make enough bees so that they can have a healthy population to get through that first winter. And this is the most energy intensive thing that the bees are going to do as a colony their entire existence. It takes 8 to 11 pounds of sugar to make 1 pound of wax. It is an incredibly energy intense thing, and the bees can only do it during a very short window of their life, at least make it effectively. So worker bees have over 30 different jobs, and they do it based on their age, right? And so they may be nurse bees for a little while, then they may be housekeeper bees, they may be undertaker bees, all that kind of stuff. But wax builders is between 12 and 17 days. And that's really the only time they can make significant wax. They can make small amounts of wax at other times, but not enough to really build up what we need to do. That's important because we've got a box of young bees, and there's a short window when the bees are going to be in that 12 to 17 day period, and we're going to build wax. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to prep our frames inside of our box so that we'll be prepared for wax. So a lot of times we buy plastic foundation. There are other methods, but I'm going to assume that we're doing plastic foundation. That is one of the most common methods in a Langstroth hive for configuring, especially if you're going to do honey extraction with an extractor, a big centrifuge. You really need to have the foundation, because if you don't, when you put it in the centrifuge, it'll just spin out and make a huge mess. So that's honey production, that is for later in the year. We'll have a lot of discussions. But we're going to start with frames of plastic foundation. Now, what can happen is plastic foundation can, especially if it's sitting around over time, it gets very dry and it doesn't feel very waxy. It's just kind of plastic. Or a lot of times with some suppliers, they don't coat it very well with wax anyway. So I'm going to start passing this around so you can kind of feel what a frame that isn't really well prepared feels like. I'm going to follow it with just one that is, pre-waxed as purchased. And what will happen, what will happen is the bees don't want to build on just plastic. It doesn't really resonate to them that is what they should be doing. Even though there's the little shape of the right size of cell for them to build, they're not going to want to do it. And what can happen is you can actually end up with them building wax off of the foundation, where they'll build it on the wood frame and down here, and that's off center. This is going to cause you headaches. In fact, not making good wax right now will cause you headaches for as long as you're dealing with chasing these frames going forward. So we really want to spend a little bit of time making sure that we're making it well prepared. So one of the things that you can do is, if it is feeling, fairly dry, it doesn't feel really tacky, things like that, we can add beeswax to it ourselves before we get in this spot. So you want to get your beeswax from a known source. Don't go to a hobby store and buy beeswax. It is better to go to one of our local bee stores and get a small amount of wax, or one of our beekeepers if they have wax that they want to sell you. And you can go online. There's lots of different methods where you can melt it, you can paint it on, you can roll it on, but you can also just take a stick and just give it a really good rub on all the surfaces. And that's enough that they will be able to say, hey, that's actually where we need to start building wax, okay? And on the day that we're actually going to be starting installing our, that's actually a fairly waxed one. On the day that we're going to actually do the installation, we're going to do something that will also encourage them to start building the wax, okay? So we've now got our box, our bottom board leveled. We're in pretty good shape. We also don't want to do this too early and leave it out in the sun, because if we do this right now and we get a really hot day and the bees aren't in there to moderate the temperature, that wax that you just put in will just kind of run down. It won't stay put where you want it to do. So this is something that you can leave the bottom board out where it's going to be, but keep your frames kind of together until you're ready to actually do the package installation. Okay? So that's kind of the basis of the wax preparation to make things go. Now, what's great is we're going to get our package, and this is just an exciting time for new beekeepers, because you're going to pick up a box that's got 3 pounds of bees, so that's somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 bees, depending on the bees, and it's going to be in a box like this. Now, the things that you're going to want to do when you are picking up your package, you want to look at it and you want to make sure that it's not full of dead bees on the bottom, right? We want to make sure that you're getting a healthy package, because it's going to be a while before the bees are able to make new ones. A good breeder should be able to provide you with a healthy package. In that, they should be typically clustered kind of right in the middle. There'll be a big ball. One of the things that you're going to want to do is take a towel with you. So if you set this on your seat or something like that, there's going to be bee poop, there's going to be bits of wax, there's going to be all sorts of stuff, and that's not really great inside your car. So go ahead and sit it on the seat of your car to kind of keep your wives happy, from experience. The other thing is how you're going to handle this. Don't hold it like this. They can sting through this, and you will soon find that they will find you. So don't put your nose up against it. Don't put your thumbs on it. You want to kind of hold it by the sides. You want to be fairly gentle with it. You want your car to be at a reasonable temperature. You don't want the air conditioner blowing through here. You want it to be a fairly stable environment for the transportation. If you want, you can also bring a little spray bottle with a fine mist, and you're going to fill it up with a 1-to-1 sugar water mixture. So 1 part sugar, 1 part water. That can either be, because sugar and water are the same density, they can be a cup of water and a cup of sugar, or it can be a pound of sugar and a pound of water. It's all the same. But when we talk about 1-to-1, we're talking about equal parts of water and sugar. You can give them a quick mist when you're picking them up. That will give them something to kind of clean off. It gives them, you'll hear the temperature of the bees, the buzzing will kind of calm down a little bit. And it'll make the transport a little bit easier, okay? When we get home, the mechanisms of what this package is there's a big can that is in the center. And what this big can is it is basically sugar water. So it's got little holes in the bottom. And this is just to maintain them during their transportation, to make sure that they have some food resources to be able to get from wherever they're starting, usually California, but other locations as well, to be transported. So this is the food source just primarily for transportation. You're going to come with a little box that is going to contain a queen. So there's a screen on one side, and it will be in a whole bunch of bees. And what will happen is you want to make sure that you are taking a look and making sure that your queen is alive and healthy. She should be moving back and forth in here because if you have a dead queen, you need to let your where you bought your packages from know right away, because they will get you a queen right away. They almost always have spare queens if something happens. Now, as you're doing that, you can take this out and with a gloved hand, if you kind of run along, there's going to be bees on here. If you kind of brush their backs, if they are just gently moving out of the way, that's good. It means that they know that this is their queen. They're happy. The reality is this queen is not related to these bees. And in fact, most of the bees in here are not related to each other. The way that the commercial beekeepers are making packages is they're going through a lot of hives that have been set up to have a lot of young bees, and they're just taking and shaking them into a big box. That big box weighs 3 pounds of them and dumps them in here. And so it's multiple hives of young bees all together and in here. This will be a mated queen, and they have either provided this themselves or they've purchased commercial mated queens. And so they will put her in here. And the thing is, if they're moving out of the way and they've accepted her, then that's good, because they've already spent a couple of days together. We're off to a good start. If they are aggressively holding on to here, they do not want to let go. That's just an indication of that we need to be a little bit more careful in doing our release of our queen into the colony, because they may need just a little bit more time. In a rare instance, it can also mean that there's a virgin queen that is inside here too. So the KT has mentioned that that has happened in other bee clubs, that they've ended up with a few rogue virgin queens in there. But so that's something to look for. Okay, so we have 7,000 to 10,000 bees in here. We've got our queen in her little cage here, and we want to get all of this into our hive. We want to do this reasonably as quickly as we can. But if it is raining outside, if it is a hurricane of wind blowing, if it is snowing, you can keep this in your garage for another day, okay? Now, don't leave it outside next to a tree for 2 weeks, which is what another club had a member do. They will not survive that. But you do not have the pressure that you absolutely have to do this installation right as soon as you get home. So just be aware of that. We're now basically ready to be able to do the installation of this package. There's a whole bunch of different things that are shown on the internet. I'm going to show you the gentle way that works perfectly sufficiently fine where you don't have to beat up your bees by shaking them and dumping them and things like that, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to take our queen cage and we're going to end up putting it between our frames in here. Before we do that, there's a couple of options. One is you can either do a direct release of the queen, which has its own challenges, or you can do it where they give you a little sugar plug. It's a little plastic piece like this. They should give you this when you pick up your package. If not, you can ask for it, and hopefully they'll give it to you. If they don't have any, you can also do this with a mini marshmallow. So it's not the end of the world. There's always a lot of different ways that we can do this in beekeeping. But one of the things that you want to do is if you have this, and there'll be candy fondant in here, you want to kind of roll both ends in your fingers, because what can happen is the candy can get really hard on the ends, and it can be too hard for the bees to be able to chew through. But what's going to ultimately happen is we're going to put this candy in here, and it's going to take a day or two or potentially 3, but usually it happens fairly quick. They're going to eat through the candy, and they will self-release the queen into the colony, and away we go. What we have to be careful of is making sure that we don't stand way back here and there's a cork in here, and we open our cork and our queen goes that way. Because now we don't have a queen for our colony, and you better call and see if they have a queen you can buy.
Then you get a bottle of credit cutter for your story.
And then you get a bottle of credit cutter for your story. There are several options. Kenny Fuller sells queen muffs so that you can do this inside a little cage thing with your hands, so that if the queen gets out, then she's actually still contained. Otherwise, do it near your hive for number one. And what you're going to do is you're kind of watching your queen. She's going to be pacing back and forth. What you want is when she gets to the other side is when you're going to pop the cork and put your finger across it. Now, queens can sting, as we learned in our apiary last year, but it is very rare that they do. It's not usually going to be a problem to have your finger across it. But this gives you a moment to take your breath, get things prepared, wait until she's at the other end, and then you're going to kind of put the candy in, so that or your marshmallow, so that you're good to go. So this is the candy release method. If you want to do direct release, what you want to do is just kind of pop the cork with it facing down, so she's going to be able to follow directly into these frames. Typically, direct release, you're still going to give her a couple of days in here so that the bees have a chance to start organizing and realizing that this is home. You typically don't want to do that day one with a brand new package. So that's why I like the candy thing. Now, when you're mounting it in here, there's usually a little tab. Sometimes the tab breaks off, sometimes it comes off. There's a lot of things you can do. You can use a thumbtack, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that the orientation of this is with the candy facing down and the screen to be facing along the frames. What you don't want is it to be this way or opposite, so where the screen is actually touching the frame, because what's going to happen is the bees are going to continue to feed the queen and maintain the queen through this screen, and they're going to take care of her. If they can't access her, they can't take care of her, and so you may end up killing your queen because you're not orienting her right. So you want to just make sure that it is facing sideways. I usually do it in the middle of the frame, and you can just kind of bend this and put a thumbtack in here. You can use rubber bands. You can be creative. You just want to make sure that the bees have access to the screen, and typically the queen is going to be facing down. And you're going to put that somewhere in the middle of your frames. And when we're pushing our frames together, this goes back to the wax. We want to make sure that all the frames are pushed as tightly as they can together, and you want them evenly spaced in the center of the box. This has to do with what's called bee space. So bee space is between 3/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch. And this is the space that when the comb is drawn out, the bees will be able to pass each other back to back on the face of the comb. Any further apart, if you don't space them together, then they start filling that with wax, and they start going cross-combing and wonky comb. and you start getting wavy comb, and you start getting all sorts of crazy stuff happening. And so you want to avoid that. So anytime we're doing an inspection, anytime that we're doing anything with our frame manipulations, the last thing we want to do when we're getting ready to leave our box is push all the frames together. There's an exception to this, but that won't happen until we're talking about honey season. So that'll happen later. All right, any questions at this point?
I just want everybody to understand, he took the food can out to show you, but you would never leave it sitting out with the food can not put back. Because
Yeah.
you're gonna be
Yeah, you can also just set it on top. And sometimes it's a real pain in the butt to get the can out in the first place. So you can use your hive tool to kind of get in there and kind of pop it up. But a lot of times what you're going to do is you're going to just kind of, in practice, is you're going to tip it up. You're going to slide out your queen cage. You can manipulate that. Keep this here. That keeps all the bees inside. And we're happy there. Very good point. All right.
So you got the queen in there.
So got the queen in here.
Okay.
And now there's two different flavors of what to do. You can take out 5 of your frames in this box, and that will give you enough space that you can literally just set this box down in the side of this. The other thing you can do is you can take your other deep box without the frames, so it's just an empty box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the package like that. I'm going to borrow your box, Pete. And we're just going to set it on top. We can remove our can and we can put our top on. And within 24 hours, the bees realize that they don't want to be in the cage without the queen anymore. They're just going to get out of there and they will go down to the frames where the queen is. You don't have to shake them out, which busts them up. You know, we want to keep them as healthy as we can, be as gentle with them as we can. Maybe they'll be gentle with you. So either one of those ways. Yeah, Brian.
I kind of take the can out and set it next to it so they can finish out.
Yes, we can also do that where you just take the can that came with them. Should it still have some syrup in it, you can just set it next to the box on top of the frames, and that gives them something to eat for the first day, okay? Now, the important thing is we come back in 24 hours, and we should basically have an empty box. There may be a couple of dead bees in the bottom. That's okay. There's always a few dead bees. We just don't want piles of dead bees in here. But they should basically all been moved off. So you now have a demonstration that you can take to your local bee club to be able to show. Okay? You're now going, if you took out 5 of the frames, you're now going to put those frames back in and you're going to push it together. Now what's important is that we need to start feeding this hive. Wax is important. The bees that are in that package, you only have that window of 12 to 17 days for them to draw out enough wax to give the queen for space that she can start laying for the next generation to happen. And they need to have sugar to do that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to feed them a 1-to-1 sugar syrup. And there are a variety of different feeding options that you can do. There are basically mason jars that you can do with little holes in the bottom. A lot of times you can get an inner cover that has holes for this that you can basically put it in. So you fill it up. You want to make sure that this is room temperature and it fits in that the inner cover hole, and then you'll use your other box around it while you're feeding. This can also be used in what's called a Boardman feeder. So Boardman feeder sits on the front. Now, if you do this, you're going to have to actually get a dip. You're going to cut down one of your entrance reducers to allow you to have space. The advantage of this is that it does allow you to see easily how much of the syrup they're consuming. The other advantage is if we go through a temperature swing overnight and we have a cold night followed by a warming and we lose the vacuum in here and it all drains out, it drains out the front of the hive and it doesn't drain on top of your bees. because wet bees are dead bees, especially when it's cold. There are inner frame feeders. I'm not really a big fan of that. Or you can go with top feeders. So this is my personal favorite top feeder. This is out of New Zealand. There's basically areas that they can come up in the center and in all four corners to access the syrup. And then they access it from the underside of the hive. So what you can do is when you put this on and you pour your syrup in, this particular design is really nice because no matter how it's tilted or sloped, they can access all the syrup because it'll run to one of the corners and they'll be able to access all the syrup. You can also buy them that only have it in the middle, but they eat down to the point where it's all sloped away from them, then they can't have access to that. You do run a little bit of a risk anytime that you're using liquid feed inside the hive of cold temperatures can get condensation in there as well. So you need to kind of keep an eye on the temperature and try to moderate that as well. But we're basically going to be giving them 1-to-1 sugar. This allows them to start drawing out that wax. Why is that important? Well, okay, so once the bees that you have hit day 17 and they're no longer producing wax to be able to make more bees, we're now in a position where they can't draw more wax. What wax they were able to draw is what they have until the bees that emerge 21 days later after the queen has laid them they've emerged, and then they still have another 12 days before they can make wax. All the time from when we do this, we're also going to start seeing less and less bees. This is normal for a package installation, right? The other thing we're going to do is we're going to come back in 4 or 5 days, and we're going to make sure that the queen has been released. So we're going to come in, and we're simply going to, and a lot of times this happens much quicker, but you can leave this in for 4 or 5 days. It's not a big deal. We're going to take it out, and we're going to make sure that their queen is no longer in the cage. Then we just take this out of our hive completely, and it becomes the souvenir. And we push all our frames back together, okay? But back to the wax and the progression of how important it is to really get the feed on to draw that wax initially. So let's assume that we get our package on April 26th. And let's assume we even install the package on the 26th. It's a great day when we pick up our package, we get them in here, we put it in here. We're expecting by May 1st, the queen has been released from her cage. She's able to actually go in here. She can actually start laying eggs before the cell is fully drawn, and they will continue to draw wax around the initial eggs. But we're going to say that in reality, she's probably going to start laying eggs around May 3rd. And you may not actually see eggs, especially as a new beekeeper, until 10 or 11 days after they're in here. And what you can do is if you do an inspection, you're lifting up and you're looking in here, they look like tiny little grains of rice. Very, very small rice. Yeah, very small. So there are different colors of the plastic foundation. We saw that this is black and there was yellow. There's also white. Does the color make any difference to the bees? No, it's dark in here. They don't see the color anyway, right? But from a new beekeeper, black is preferable to be able to see that white egg cell against, but you will be able to see it on the other ones as well. With a little bit more experience, you'll pick that up fairly quickly. Okay, so we should start seeing evidence that the queen is laying. So you may not be able to find the queen as a new beekeeper, although this is a really good time to be practicing looking for her because there's never going to be this few bees in this colony again. So being able, and at this point, there's no drones. So drones are the males. They have a bigger body than the workers, and a lot of times their bodies are about the size of a queen. So there are definitely big differences that you need to look for. The drones have big eyes that go all the way to the center of their heads because when they go out to mate, they're hunting for virgin queens. They're looking for the queens flying through the drone congregation area. They have a very rounded butt because they don't have a stinger. They only have their endophallus, their sexual organs that are there. So drones can't sting you. So it also means that they're great to play with, especially when you get to the point where you're trying to queen mark. You can practice on drones without any problem. Okay. The queen is going to have much more of an alligator tail that is hanging out. Her wings are only going to cover about half or so of her abdomen, whereas all the workers, their wings are going to be covering the whole thing. So this is a good time to be going in and watching the development. So you want to be doing this maybe once a week. Don't necessarily be doing it 5 times a day. We want to give them time to do things. But you do want to kind of see the progression of what's going on in your hive as an early beekeeper and be able to work with that. So once the queen has started laying eggs, May 24th would be the first emergence of your new workers. So all the way to the end of May, before the population in here is starting to increase again. It's a big moment to be able to start seeing the cap brood emerging and those new workers going in. They're going to start going through all of their duties as young bees. You'll still have nectar and pollen coming in, and around June 5th is going to be the next opportunity for them to start making wax. So when do we put the second box on top of this one? We need to have, let's open it to the audience. I want to have participation. When is enough wax and enough bees before we add our second box? 80%. We need to have at least 8 frames fully drawn out and bees on them before we're going to add a second box on here. Another thing is when to stop feeding. We're giving them wax. We're trying to help them out and all that kind of stuff. When we stop feeding them, the bees will let us know. They'll stop taking it. When they get nectar and there's a good nectar flow, nectar is healthier, more healthy for them than the sugar is. It tastes better. They know it. They'll stop taking your feed. And when they stop taking your feed, you no longer have to put feed on there. Then you can remove your feeders and watch them start bringing in those resources themselves. Yeah.
But some of you get packages, it's too late to be giving them pollen patties.
So a lot of it, okay, so beekeeping is local and beekeeping is hyper-local, right? I have one apiary that they have been bringing in pollen like gangbusters for almost 6 weeks now. I actually have 8 to 9 full frames of brood in those. They're busting. I'm mitigating swarming with them right now. They're able to get enough pollen to not have a problem. You certainly can put supplemental pollen feed on a package, and if they like it, they will take it and they will use it. And if they don't, they won't eat it. And other than the couple bucks you spent to get the pollen patty, it's not a big deal. So it won't hurt to put it on there. If we have a good early spring and things are well in bloom, they may have more than enough pollen to be able to manage themselves. Yeah.
Question, so you talk about the 80% drawn out, bees covering, if you're using frames that you got from someone else that are already drawn out, are you still primarily with the 80% coverage of bees?
Yeah, and you have a huge advantage if you already have drawn comb. And with the drawn comb, it's probably not all just empty comb. There's probably stuff in it. Yeah. If it is full of a lot of pollen and it has been not stored in a freezer, most likely they're not going to use that pollen. And so with that one, you may want to scrape off the wax, get a new piece of foundation, and replace that frame. Okay. Honey. So there's also a little bit more for next month, but the sneak peek, they will start storing honey on the outside frames. So 1 and 10, frames 2 and 9. They will also store honey, especially on the outsides, but that's where you typically start seeing excess pollen being stored. The brood nest is going to be in the center frames. And in a frame, what you're going to see is a beautiful rainbow. So there'll be honey that is in the upper corners and on the top. Then you'll see a little bit of pollen that is in there, and then a nice football that is all the developing brood. And so that is enough resources that the nurse bees are able to just go short distances to be able to get the resources to feed the developing larva. Other bees, their job is to replenish on those frames to keep it going, and then any excess, they're going to put those stores towards the edge. And if you have an empty foundation, then they're not going to put anything there. You may also see that it may be loaded one side versus the other. So I tend to see slight difference on, because my hives face southeast. So on the western side, I see a different amount of resources that are stored, and I typically see drones that are actually made on that side over the other side. So these are interesting things that you get to learn as you get more familiar with your hives and the development of your bees. Other questions? What was that?
When that bottom box gets 80% full, if you take those two outside frames that aren't being worked on yet and move them in a frame or two,
Yep.
it helps them to make sure, that they complete the job.
Yep. That's an excellent point, is what you can do is once they've drawn out that 80 and you want these last frames to be drawn out, you can take them and move them in one spot. What you don't want to do is you don't want to take them and move them right in the center of the brood nest. You don't want to divide up your brood chamber because it's going to slow down the maintenance and of those bees and the expansion of your brood nest. So you want to keep those more towards the edge. And once again, you want everything every time pushed together and centered in here. Yeah.
Quick question, got a pollen patty that left over from last year with the fridge, that
Yeah. Yep, shouldn't be a problem. The big thing is, like frames of pollen that they put in themselves, what you'll end up with is, unless you've stored them in the freezer, if they've just been sitting out or something like that, even if they've stored in the freezer, if they're bringing in a lot of new good pollen, they would prefer to do that than last year's. And so what you can end up with is entombment, where they will actually cap it off. And all that means is this frame can no longer be used for resources in the hive. And so it doesn't do the hive any good. So at that point, you want to go ahead and pull it out and put a new frame of foundation in for them to draw and put resources again. Yeah.
For the newbies, what is your timeline on changing the entrance reducer?
Well, once again, we're not going to see emergence of any workers until the 24th, right? So it's probably going to be in early June before I would even consider pulling it out. A lot of times what I'm looking for is there a traffic jam? Am I getting so many bees and they're all just kind of waiting to get in here? And if they're all just waiting to get in here, then I'll flip it from this small one up to the next size one. And then once I've got significant number of bees and they're coming and going, I simply remove the entire thing and open up my front. This is going to happen in June, mid-June, because the other thing is, at that point, we want our bees to get all the resources out there and put them in here, both for them and, if we're lucky in our first year, for us. So the expectation for a first-year beekeeper is you may not get any honey the first year, and that's okay. That's expected. It is the difference between a beehaver and a beekeeper of being able to get the colony through its first winter and being able to carry on. And there's a lot of things to learn about doing that. That's why we're all in the club and have these kind of resources. But what we want is that open highway so that the foragers can come and go as quickly as they can. And in fact, what they do is, the foragers are not going to come in and move all the honey all the way up into the honey super. They're going to meet another bee and they're going to offload their honey from their honey crop into another bee so that they can immediately go out and start collecting nectar again. That other bee then moves it up and down in the hive. That's one of the other jobs. All right. Happy bees. And our apiary event is a great opportunity to see this in action. So.
All right.
All right.
So swarm season is coming. Let's take 2 minutes and talk about swarms. Tim is our swarm manager.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. My name is Tim Thompson, and I am the swarm commander. So swarm season is now, and the way that swarms work for the new beekeepers, there's a Colorado initiative that the state national or the state beekeeping association has done, and we have a phone number that's 844 SPY bees. So people will Google, hey, I see this big wad of bees in my yard. I need to call a phone number. You call this number, and it gets dispatched or transferred to swarm commanders throughout the state. We have Arapahoe, Kiowa, Elbert, Castle Rock, Parker. I said Aurora. It's a pretty big area. So we get a lot of calls. Hopefully there's a lot of calls that come in this year and we don't have a shortage. A couple years ago we had a shortage. This last year was a bumper crop and we filled up everybody who was on the swarm list. As part of your dues, this is also a members only deal. So part of your dues that go into there, you can go get swarms and capture them if you would like. So we will have on our website, and then I will also email out to everybody who is a member a form that you will fill out. We don't do paper forms anymore because we live in digital world. So you'll get this form, you'll fill it out, it's a Google form. You'll fill it out, how far do you want to travel, where do you live, what times of the day you can go get bees, how high off the ground, what equipment do you have a vacuum? Having a vacuum is not necessary. 90 to 95% of the bees that are swarms do not require a vacuum. So don't feel like you have to have one of those. One of the biggest barriers is time to get to the bees. So when you sign up and you want to go get a swarm, myself, and I failed to mention, Cynthia is also our other swarm commander. So both of us will call you. We don't leave messages. We don't text you to say we have a swarm, etc. We have to call and talk to you and do that because texting back and forth takes too much time. Swarms will typically, once they get them to us, they've usually been there for an hour or days in some cases, and they will leave shortly thereafter, especially because it's going to take you 20 to 30 minutes probably to get there to that swarm. So now that we're in swarm season, please, if you want to get swarmed and you've had your times filled out, these are the times of the day I can go, this is how far I can go, we're going to go down the list, find somebody who matches, we're going to call them, you're going to answer, you're going to say, yes, I can go get a bees, what's the address? We will validate, make sure that the bees are actually bees and not wasps, because you would be surprised at how many people think wasps are bees. And we don't want you to go get angry bees and get that's a wasted trip. So we will make them send us pictures. I don't ever send anybody out unless they have sent me a viable picture of a bee. I don't care who you are, how long you've been keeping bees, whatever it is. I don't trust anybody. Well, I trust but verify. So been burned many, many times. Oh, I've been a beekeeper for 5 years and 10 years. My husband saw those and they were perfectly good bees. They were coming and they're all over the place. No, they're not. We will talk to you on the phone and then we'll validate. Unless you're Doug, we will send you and text you the information there on after, because Doug doesn't do text. Then you'll go get the bees. We will ask that you take a couple of pictures of the bees pre-capture and then post-capture, and then send them to us so we can put them on our wall of fame and kind of go from there. So that's kind of it. The biggest not problem, but the biggest times are normally during the day. So it's going to be between 8 and 3, 8 and 4 is when 80-90% of our phone calls come through. So if you can cover those times, great. If you can't, that's fine. I mean, don't try to go out of your way or anything, but you'll get the form, fill it out, tell us when you can go, and so forth. Yes?
How do you get on the list?
How do you get on the list? We will send the Google form. It's also on the website, on the Swarm section. You'll click in there, fill out the form. It fills it out for us, and then that way we can keep in there. And between myself and Cynthia, we can fill out and say who's been out to what call, and then we plot it out and see which ones are there. We won't send you on an extraction. If they're in a structure, that's a different ball of wax, pun intended. So you won't go on an extraction, and hopefully I've gotten pretty good at it. Most of the time, if they're on the edge of a house, on a deck, next to a column, they're probably going to get in that column. But yes.
On the website, there's the form, but it doesn't tell people where to send the form. That's something I talked to Cynthia about.
Yeah, we need to change that. We need to change that form to the link to the Google form. So I'll work with you on that to change it to a Google form. The one right now, so if you go there tonight, we'll fix it by tomorrow. Don't fill out the paper form, because the paper form is a couple years old, and it says print this off and then bring it to a meeting or send it to so and so. But we'll have it go to the Google form correctly. Yes, Ann.
You might want to just basically tell people what equipment they need.
Oh, yes. Basic equipment that you would need is normally a nuke box is useful. That's a normal or a smaller hive. Sometimes you might have to get into a deep and some container that you're going to carry these bees home with you on, because normal swarms are about the size of a package. In the first of the year, they will normally be larger than that. So they'll fill up 3, 4, 5 frames of bees on the larger ones, and they'll fill them up quickly. A box to put them in, or a cardboard box, a tub, whatever it is that you can do that with. I won't tell you how I know this, but don't transport them in the tub without having some way where they can spread out and get up on frames of that, or wire frames or anything else, because they will roast and burn themselves to death. So ventilation, yes. They need ventilation to come in and out. Yes, Mark?
So for the new beekeepers, why do you want swarms? What are advantages of swarms? That's one.
Swarms are free bees, yes.
They're already making queen.
There's nothing like a swarm that will draw wax.
Yes. Swarms will draw wax very, very quickly. They are free bees. That's with a caveat. I've been on many calls over the past 6 years of swarm calls, and there was no queen in there, or no viable queen, or whatever. But they are bees, and they are free bees. You do have to work for them, though.
They may not be mite free.
True. Yeah.
But the advantage is, if you're putting them in a new thing, there's no brood for the mites to reproduce on at that point. So oxalic acid vaporization is extremely efficient in taking out the mites off of a swarm.
Yeah. So to rehash, swarm season's here. We'll have the form updated on the internet, on the website. Plus, we will email you all when that form is updated. And I'll have my number and Cynthia's number in the email and on the form, so that if you do see us coming in on that call on that number, that you will say, oh, yay, I get a swarm. Or that we'll hopefully have a swarm available for you. so you don't just say, oh, that's a spam or somebody trying to send me Nigerian money.
And Pueblo has already had their first swarm, so it's already happened.
Pueblo had a swarm. Hopefully it'll be here within the next 2 to 3 weeks with this cold snap. It won't be there, but. And again,
I was just gonna say, a couple other things I have in my swarm kit. There's a little like 2-step step ladder because it's always up just that much farther where I can push it. I typically, instead of trying to carry around a heavy box, I just get a baker's box. I cut some holes in it with some screens so they have ventilation. And because I can hold that cardboard box up there, grab that branch, pop it. Most of the bees will just drop into that, but I can hold it with one hand. So that's why I like that. The other things I like to have is a brush and a dustpan. Because sometimes they're on the ground or on the sidewalk and you just basically brush them and put them in there.
yeah.
So do you put that step ladder on the bed of your truck? Park it on the top to learn?
I have not gotten to that point yet.
The-
I know people who have done that.
The most useful tool that I have is actually a very long pole. I think it can extend out to 50 feet. And it's I call them Hygeia water bottles, but it's a water bottle that's on the end of that. And I will prefer that to a ladder any day because you don't want to get on a ladder. I mean, you can get on a ladder and get there, but they are much easier if you have it on a pole and then you can just dump them off into the box with your bee suit. Yes.
And it's also really nice to bring something small for the people that called in the swarm. So if you have a little bottle of honey or bee stickers or something like that, it's a really nice gesture, especially because a lot of times that tree that collected the swarm will attract future swarms.
Yep.
So rewarding them for calling in is a good thing.
Vance.
Another good thing to include is a very long extension cord to plug in your bee vac out in somebody's yard.
Bring a long extension cord.
You know what I found, rather than having all them extension cords go to the person's house, just carry one of them battery packs, like a little Bluey battery pack. I'll use that for my sublic acid vaporization now, rather than dragging cords out. That really works.
One other little tip, if you bring along a bottle of diluted Dawn dish soap, that will kill bees. You're not gonna spray the bees with them. But the branch that they were on, spray it on the branch, and that will dissipate that pheromone that's on there. So hopefully they won't get more bees back on there. Sometimes that doesn't work.
Unless it's your own apiary, you want to leave it there.
And some of it is the scouts are returning, and so sometimes they'll call back and go, oh my God, there's another one in the exact same spot, and it's the size of a tennis ball. It's just all of the scouts that were out looking for sites. They'll come back, and if you put the dawn there, that will help dissipate them. They may actually return back to the colony that they swarmed from.
Any other questions? How many people want to capture swarms this year? Okay. Also, for anybody who's not necessarily interested in going out and doing it by themselves, you can fill it out, say, hey, I would like to kind of go out and watch somebody or learn or whatever. Then we can also kind of partner you up and tag team you and stuff like that to go out.
When you first start beekeeping, if you go up another beekeeper chasing swarm, it's exciting. It's like going deer hunting. Because I mean, you shake them bees and then you watch them start nazzing off and all walking in. It's kind of...
The bee walk is a very nice thing to see. Is all the bees walking into the new box and the new hive. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. So we're running a bit late tonight, and I've got some bad news. I didn't bring the crud cutter with me. So
Carson Wildlife just posted that they're starting to see bears come out. Turn your fences on.
bears are coming out. Turn your fences on. So because we're running a little late, I'm gonna skip over the Crud Cutter confessions. Go straight into the Golden Bee Award. The Golden Bee is awarded once a month to somebody who has provided services to the club. And they get to take it home with them, put it on their desk, put it on the mantle, put it in an obvious place where they can look at it every day and say, "Isn't that great? People think highly of me." So this month's award goes to Brett. Brett Morisori. Brett has been doing an awful lot as an at-large member of the board. He's been organizing a lot of research on replacing our very manual systems of finance and club membership methodologies and email methodologies and all that other stuff. So that and organizing the Honey Festival and organizing connections to Tagawa Gardens, I think it is, where we're going to do the garage sale. So a lot of effort in this last month that's going to pay a lot of dividends in the future.
And
So
it doesn't even have any bees yet.
Almost. The 26th and later in May, we're gonna go for an idea to into news.
very cool. Thank you, Brett. Okay, let's jump into the
Okay, get your tickets
Raffle.
out. We're gonna do our raffle. I'll show you what we have. I don't know who brought this in, but it seems to be a little feeder. So on the inside, it's like his top feeder. What?
It's called a round feeder. You put it over your hole with pink beads.
Okay.
Put sugar syrup over your hole.
Okay. Did you bring it?
Oh, I didn't.
Okay.
round feeder.
We have, this is just a, what do I call it?
Shadow box.
Shadow box.
Shadow boxes, just decoration. We have 2 Christmas tree ornaments, or ornaments. Guess you don't have to use them at Christmas. We have a bracelet, earrings, and a necklace. We have
It's a corn bag.
a corn therapy bag. So, yeah, you can nuke it and warm it, use it like a heating pad. We have convict coffee. Convict coffee. And we have Delicious Goods beef jerky.
Okay, so let's see. The first number is ending in 165.
I never win anything. What's going on?
All right, take your pick.
Thank you.
Okay, next, whoops, got 2. Okay, next number is 168. Okay, next number 199. 199. One, 154. Ooh, Perry's up. Okay, 190. 190. One seven seven. Hey, Brian.
Wins every time.
All right, 166. Ooh, there we go. Good. And whoever bent their ticket, I picked it. 157. Three more to go. 187. Oh, thank you. 187. Okay, 182. Thank you. And last but not least, 186. Going once. Going twice. Okay. All right, last one again. 178. Yeah. Alrighty, thank you. Thanks everybody for coming. Let's help clean up the chairs. We can certainly use the help. Thanks. See you next week, next month.